how much extra would you pay at the store if it meant that the workers could no longer need food stamps? That was the question the American Public Media Marketplace set out to answer. Now, they crunched some numbers and found that Walmart would have to spend an extra $4.8 billion to lift its average wages just enough to get all of its employees off some sort of public assistance, mainly food stamps. Now, they get the $4.8 billion figure by using an average base wage of $8.81. This wage figure comes from a marketing research firm that looked up these numbers. Now, Marketplace estimated that Walmart would need to raise their wages from $8.81 to $13.83 an hour in order to get all of its employees off of food stamps. And like I said, that would cost Walmart $4.8 billion. Now, what's the cost going to you? Now, if you're worried about the price increase, you can relax. You won't actually have to be paying $10 for a gallon of milk. Calm down. Since because Walmart is so huge and makes so much money, it would only need to raise prices by 1.4% to cover the cost of raising wages. The example that they use, Marketplace, is they use a box of macaroni and cheese. Normally that costs about 68 cents. If they were to raise the wages from $8.81 an hour to $13.83 and get everyone off food stamps, the cost of the macaroni and cheese, according to Marketplace, would be a grand total of 69 cents. That is a 1 penny difference according to them. Now, most of the food items would see an increase of a couple cents while decreasing the amount of welfare. How much would that save for American taxpayers? It would save roughly about $300 million from Walmart alone no longer having to pay or to get their employees on food stamp benefits. Now, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to partially fault Marketplace here. Not so much them as people reporting on this. So the big headline here is Walmart raising employees' salary just means 1 penny more for mac and cheese. That is kind of the ending tagline of the Marketplace report, but if you watch or listen to the report on the radio, like a good NPR fan, and you should all support your local NPR affiliate, did, that's not at all what the Marketplace report really said. They used macaroni and cheese as an example, and their point was anything under $1, the price would increase 1 cent, because 1% of $1 is 1 cent. So other prices would increase more. I mean, Walmart doesn't sell a lot of big-ticket items, but some of their nicer TVs, maybe that are $600 or whatever would go up, $6. So it's still pretty negligible. So I just want to point that out. The idea is that these prices would go up across the board. It's not that Walmart could pay for this by raising mac and cheese prices 1 cent, which is how it's kind of being reported. But still, that said, this is one of those things where I get frustrated because there's no need to be deceptive about this. The idea that Walmart could raise all their prices 1% and pay their people a living wage is strong enough on its own. Like we don't need to skew the data. Like that's so embarrassing and such a sham. It goes just like what we talked about last week. With it's not only is it poor social policy, it's not even necessarily good business, because just like GM said, no, we're not going to pay 57 cents a part to fix this part, but we will pay for the recall that is going to be drastically more expensive than this. Walmart's doing the same thing here. We're not going to raise prices 1%. We're going to pay our people next to nothing and then let them live off the government. Like it's not a free market answer. These low wages rely on government abuse. So it's another example of like whenever the right wing says people abuse government programs, it's because their donors and the people paying to keep them in office are the ones benefiting from that abuse.
Yeah, I wanna say something that's gonna be kind of amazing. So when I saw this story on the docket, which is the phrase I'm gonna use, I decided to look up how much money Walmart makes off of food stamps in a given year. And it turns out 18% of all food stamp dollars go straight to Walmart, and that's about $14 billion a year. So $4 billion they would have to give up to put off to raise their employees' wages, and 14 billion they're making off the government. So you're telling me that there isn't a way, and I've already suggested this many times in the past, that you can't tell Walmart, look, if you don't pay your employees a certain wage, then we're not going to allow food stamps to be able to be spent in your store anymore. Like, that just can't happen. And if you told them that, then Walmart and big companies like that would raise their wages because they're making so much money off of what is essentially corporate welfare disguised as normal welfare or poor people welfare, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's kind of hilarious that they're making that much money off the government, and nobody seems to be pointing out that you're basically subsidizing Walmart when you pass that farm bill.
I mean, I can understand, like, you can't pass a bill that directly targets a single company. Like, you can't just say Walmart has to pay. I mean, as we've seen with, Tesla being basically singled out through certain wording, you can do that, but they're not going to be able to write a bill directly targeting Walmart. And they should. Your point about the amount of money that Walmart makes through food stamps is absolutely ludicrous. And like, I get the sense that possibly some of the mindsets in the management sphere, there's people, they'll be thinking, oh, people will be angry if we raise our prices by a cent. And I get Jordan's point that, when you're paying for something that's over $200, you've got to raise it more. You've got to raise it at least $2. But basically anything under $100, at most you need to raise it by $1. And most things that are priced these days, they're 99 cents or they're $49.99. Just raise it by that single cent, because people don't want to have to fiddle about with change if they're, paying in cash. Just raise that single cent. It'll make your customers happy. It doesn't make business sense. It doesn't make moral sense. It just makes no sense whatsoever why they're not paying their workers a legitimate wage, which they should be doing. It should be enforced through some act of law. How they go about that, I don't know. I wouldn't want to even speculate on specifics, but that something should be done about this is ridiculous.
So, obviously, I wouldn't support any law that targets a company in particular, but we have a lot of laws in this country that say if you're a business over 1,000 employees, over 2,000 employees, or whatever nonsense our government comes up with, then you have to follow these rules. So you could write a law that basically covers all these big food chains that they can't, they can't do X, Y, and Z. Like, they can't. Well, the way I would have it is they can't have 80% or whatever percent of their employees qualify for some kind of food stamps and then take food stamps in their stores themselves. So, like, you could do it in a way that's not saying specifically Walmart.